It was a cold October evening when Daniel and Sarah finally pulled up their car in front of the house they had just bought. From the outside, the house looked massive but lifeless, standing alone at the edge of a quiet street. The tall iron gates creaked open as if they hadn't been touched for years. Ivy crawled all over the stone walls, and the windows were so dusty that the reflection of the dying sun looked blurred and ghostly. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. Daniel smiled, trying to hide his own uneasiness. "Yeah, it's the one. The listing said it was abandoned for decades, but we got it for half the price. Think about it. Sarah, this place is huge. We'll finally have our dream home." They walked inside. The wooden floor groaned under their steps, and the smell of dampness and mold wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket. Old portraits still hung on the walls, faces of strangers staring at them with hollow eyes. Their painted smiles looked too stiff, too forced, as though they were hiding something. Sarah shivered. "Daniel, why would anyone leave such a big house behind?" Daniel chuckled nervously. "Who cares? Their loss is our gain." But as they climbed the staircase, a chill ran down Sarah's spine. She swore she heard faint whispers echoing in the hallway. But when she turned back, there was only silence and the long, dark corridor stretching into emptiness. That night, they decided to stay in the master bedroom. The bed frame was still there, covered with a white sheet coated in dust. As Daniel unpacked, Sarah walked to the balcony. From there, she could see the thick woods behind the house. She thought she saw someone standing between the trees, tall, thin, unmoving, but when she blinked, the figure was gone. "Daniel," she whispered, "I don't think we should stay here tonight." But Daniel laughed. "It's just an old house, Sarah. Tomorrow we'll clean it up, and it'll feel like home." Yet, that night, as they tried to sleep, the house had other plans. At exactly 3:15 a.m., Sarah woke up to the sound of footsteps pacing outside their room. Slow, heavy, dragging. She held her breath and nudged Daniel. He didn't wake up. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Then came a knock. 1, 2, 3. Her heart pounded in her chest. She whispered Daniel's name again, shaking him. He stirred, annoyed. "What is it?" Before she could answer, the door handle turned slowly on its own. Sarah screamed, but when Daniel jumped out of bed and pulled the door open, nobody was there. Only the long hallway, cold and empty. But at the far end of that hallway, one of the old portraits had fallen off the wall. The face on the canvas was now ripped in half, the painted eyes scratched out completely. And faintly, so faintly, Sarah swore she heard a woman's voice whisper, "You shouldn't have come here." The next morning, Sarah looked pale. She hadn't slept after the incident with the door. Daniel dismissed it, saying maybe the wind had knocked the portrait down and that Sarah's imagination was playing tricks. But Sarah knew what she heard. As they started exploring the house in daylight, things looked less frightening. Dust and cobwebs covered almost every corner, and the wooden floor creaked under every step. But still, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. While cleaning one of the upstairs rooms, Sarah noticed strange carvings on the wall behind an old wardrobe. She pulled it away, coughing from the dust. The markings looked like symbols, circles with crosses, strange letters, and words scratched in deep. She couldn't read them, but one phrase stood out, carved again and again. "Don't open the basement." Her blood ran cold. "Daniel, come look at this." Daniel joined her, squinting at the markings. Probably some kids broke in and vandalized the place years ago. "It's nothing." But Sarah wasn't convinced. The letters looked too sharp, too desperate, as if someone had clawed them in with bleeding hands. That night, it got worse. Around midnight, the couple heard scratching noises in the walls. Not like rats. It sounded deliberate, like fingernails dragging along the wood. Sarah sat up, clutching the blanket. "Daniel, do you hear that?" He nodded this time, his expression stiff. The scratching grew louder, then stopped. A faint whisper replaced it. They couldn't make out the words at first, but slowly, clearly, a voice hissed. "Get out!" Sarah screamed, and Daniel jumped to his feet, grabbing a flashlight. He shined it around the room, his heart pounding. The whispers stopped instantly. Silence. But then, from the corner of the room, the flashlight beam caught something chilling. A handprint smeared on the wall. Fresh. Vet. Red. Sarah gasped. Daniel, that's blood. Daniel tried to stay calm, but his hand was shaking. There has to be an explanation. Maybe it's paint or something. But deep inside, he knew it wasn't. Later, as they tried to sleep, Sarah had a dream. She was standing in the hallway, staring at the fallen portrait. But this time, the eyes were moving. They blinked, and the painted mouth opened, whispering, "The basement is waiting." Sarah woke up screaming, her heart racing. Daniel held her, whispering that it was just a nightmare. But when she looked toward the door, she froze. The door had been scratched again. This time, clear words were etched into the wood, as though by invisible claws. "Do not open the basement." The following day, Daniel tried his best to keep Sarah calm. He kept saying it was all in their head, but even he couldn't ignore the bloody handprint or the fresh scratches on the door. "Maybe there's someone living here secretly," Daniel suggested, though even his voice trembled. "Some squatter or maybe kid sneaking in." But Sarah shook her head. "Daniel, no human does this. You saw those carvings. Someone was warning us about the basement." They decided to search the house more thoroughly. In the kitchen, behind broken cabinets, they found a door leading downwards. The basement door. It was locked tight with a rusted iron chain, but the wood around the handle looked freshly scratched, as if something inside had been trying to claw its way out. Sarah's hands shook. "Daniel, please let's leave this house. We can sell it, burn it, I don't care, but we need to go now." But Daniel's curiosity got the better of him. What if there's treasure hidden down there? What if this is why the house was abandoned? That night, the whispers returned. Louder, clearer. Both of them sat frozen in bed as voices echoed through the walls. Men, women, children, crying, pleading, warning. One voice stood out from the rest. A woman's voice, sharp and chilling. "Do not open the basement. He's still there." Sarah covered her ears and sobbed. But Daniel stood, trembling, and walked toward the basement door. Something in his mind, or perhaps something inside the house, was pulling him there. The door handle shook violently on its own. Clank, clank, clank. The chain rattled as if something from the other side was desperate to escape. Daniel screamed and stumbled back, pulling Sarah with him. For hours, they sat awake, staring at the locked door, until finally the noises stopped. But in the silence that followed, Sarah noticed something that made her blood freeze. The portraits on the walls had changed. The painted faces of strangers were no longer smiling. Now they were screaming. The third night was the worst. Rain poured outside, thunder rolled across the sky, and the whole house seemed to groan under the storm. Sarah refused to sleep, sitting on the bed with a flashlight clutched in her hand. Daniel paced the floor, his nerves raw. At 3:15 a.m., the sound came again. Clank, clank, clank. The chain on the basement door rattled violently, louder than ever. This time, the door didn't just shake, it began to crack. Splinters of wood snapped and scattered across the floor. Sarah screamed, "Daniel, it's breaking." Daniel grabbed a chair and wedged it against the door, but the pounding grew stronger. The whispers turned into screams. Dozens of voices, crying, laughing, begging. The air turned icy, their breath visible in the darkness. Then suddenly, silence. Daniel and Sarah froze. The house went dead quiet. Even the storm outside seemed to pause. Slowly, the basement door creaked open by itself. The chain was broken. A gust of freezing air rushed out, carrying with it the stench of rotting flesh. Daniel shined the flashlight into the darkness. The stairs leading down were wet, slick, as if something had been dragged up and down them. "Don't go down there," Sarah whispered, clutching his arm. But something pulled Daniel forward. Against his will, his legs moved, step by step, down the basement stairs. "Daniel, stop!" Sarah cried, chasing after him. The beam of the flashlight revealed the basement's horrors. The walls were covered in claw marks and bloody handprints. Rusted chains dangled from a ceiling. In the corner, old wooden crates lay smashed open, and inside them were bones. Human bones, Sarah gasped, covering her mouth. "Oh my God!" Then they heard it, breathing, deep, heavy, from the shadows at the far end of the basement. The flashlight flickered. For a brief second, it revealed something standing there, tall, twisted, its skin stretched too thin over long limbs, its eyes glowing faintly white. The creature stepped forward, its head jerking unnaturally as it sniffed the air. It whispered in a voice that rattled their bones. "You open the door." Daniel and Sarah ran. They sprinted up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut behind them. But as they stumbled into the hallway, they froze. Every portrait in the house now showed the same figure they had just seen. The thin, twisted creature with glowing eyes. And this time, the painted mouths were open, screaming silently. Sarah sobbed, clutching Daniel's hand. "We have to leave. We have to leave now." But the front door slammed shut on its own. Locks twisted and clicked. Windows shattered, then sealed with shadows. The house itself was alive, and it wasn't letting them go. Daniel and Sarah stumbled back into the living room, their hearts pounding like drums. The whispers had become deafening now, overlapping voices shrieking in agony. The lights flickered violently, plunging them in and out of darkness. Sarah screamed, "It's not just the basement. The whole house is cursed." Daniel pulled her close. "We need to find another way out. There has to be a window, something." But every window they tried was sealed shut, not with wood or locks, but with something darker. The glass turned to solid black when they touched it, as if shadows themselves had trapped them inside. Then, the portraits on the walls began to move. The painted figures twisted their faces in pain, their mouths opening wide. From within the canvases came screams, real, human screams, echoing around the house. Blood began dripping from the frames, streaking the walls. Sarah fell to her knees, covering her ears. "Make it stop. Please make it stop." Daniel tried to stay strong, but fear consumed him. He grabbed a rusty fireplace poker, clutching it like a weapon. "Stay behind me." From a hallway, footsteps echoed. Slow, deliberate. The creature from the basement was coming closer. The air grew colder with every step it took. Finally, it appeared, its thin, elongated body barely fitting through the hallway. Its bones cracked with every movement, its skin pale and stretched. Its eyes glowed like burning coals, and its mouth split into a wide, unnatural grin that IT spoke, its voice layered with dozens of voices, male and female, old and young, all crying and laughing at once. "You belong to the house now." Daniel swung the poker, but the creature moved faster than the eye could follow. It grabbed him by the throat and lifted him into the air. Sarah screamed, rushing forward, clawing at the creature's arm, but it was like grabbing cold stone. Daniel gasped for air, his face turning pale. Then, with a guttural roar, the creature hurled him across the room. He crashed into the wall, the portraits shattering around him. Sarah crawled to Daniel's side, sobbing. "Please, don't leave me." The creature crouched low, crawling toward them on all fours, its grin stretching wider. The whispers in the house grew into one terrifying chant. "The basement, the basement, the basement." Suddenly, the floor beneath them cracked open, splitting apart. Black voids yawned beneath the floorboards, and hands, pale skeletal hands, reached out, grabbing Sarah's ankles, pulling her down. She screamed, clawing at the floor. Daniel tried to pull her up, his face twisted in desperation. "Don't let go," she cried. But the creature only watched, grinning, as Sarah was dragged deeper into the darkness. Her screams faded until only silence remained. Daniel collapsed, tears streaming down his face. The house grew quiet once more. The portraits stopped bleeding. The whispers vanished. But Daniel was not free. When he looked at the nearest portrait, he froze. Sarah's face was there now, painted in oil, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth frozen in a scream. And slowly, the painted mouth began to move. "Daniel, join me." Daniel screamed in horror, but behind him, the creature placed its long, cold hand on his shoulder. The lights flickered one final time, and the house went completely dark. To be continued.